take it away.
All right. Today is Thursday, April 22nd, and this is our weekly development agenda. Before we get into items on the agenda, we should probably go through and do some quick introductions. I will start. My name is Jen Lampton. I am from Oakland, California, and I'm very excited to be working on a bunch of backdrop upgrades this week from Drupal. And I'm hoping to be working on the backdrop upgrade status module as part of that. So hopefully it'll start to contain not only recommendation from Indigo Zealot to check GitHub for projects that have been ported but don't have official releases. I'm also hoping to add a bunch of additional pages that'll give us some information like how many nodes of each content type and any fields that might have problems with the migration based on their field type and stuff like that can help inform estimates or how much time it might take to move a site. So let's see, let's do Nate.
Hello, I'm Nate Lampton, core committer, and yeah, we had some exciting activity this week with security release, and so I'm excited to talk about that today. Let's go to Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on Zulip and GitHub, and relatively new to Backdrop, but I've gotten involved in fixing various little odds and ends that seem to need fixing, and folks have been very friendly and inviting about that, so I'll keep doing more. Over to Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Erickson. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and have been pretty busy lately, so not too involved in the issue queue, mainly focused on some PMC issues, and yeah, and I think that's it, just here to keep up with what's going on. We have a feature freeze coming up soon, so let's go to Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm just here to see what I can do to help out with the project.
That's great. New this week, we have 4 contributed modules with their first releases, Flag Clear, Leaflet, Custom Error, and Sticky Note. So thanks to all the contributors who've been working on those. And there's also been a bunch of work happening on the documentation website. I think last week we didn't know where that stood. I checked on it this week and it looks like all of the content from the Backdrop main site has been moved over to the doc site. It has been reorganized to match an outline that Peter had come up with for us. It looks fantastic, and we've turned off the importer from the Backdrop site. So now the primary source of documentation for everything should be the docs.backdropcms.org site. And we're starting to go through all of the content on the Backdrop site and disable it and set up redirects from the old URL to the new one on the doc site. So soon we should be entirely dependent on the documentation site for all the documentation. So hopefully that'll make things easier for people to find.
Out of curiosity, Jen, is there what kind of cross-linking do we have over to the doc site from the main site?
I don't think there's any. So all of the things in the menu that point to documentation now point to the doc site. And there's a couple of things, like there's something in the footer, maybe there's a couple of links in the text that point to it. But for the most part, all of the content on the main site still points to the main site if you can find the nodes. But all of the links in the menu take you to the other site. So if you're navigating there by clicking links, you should end up on the doc site. If you Google it, you'll probably still get a page on the original site.
I noticed that the forum has a little external link icon on it, but the user guide does not. Is there?
That needs to happen in the theme. I have the local site open on my computer. I was trying to fix that.
All
yes.
Right.
There's like we add a special icon there. And
yeah, part of me actually wonders if we should even add the external link icon for the forum, because it's still within the suite of Backdrop CMS sites. Yeah.
I think the main reason we put them there is because since the sites don't share a login, people might be confused if they're logged into one and not the other.
Yeah.
But
yep.
we should fix that too.
Issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should fix that too. And then we can remove the external link icon. Yeah. Okay, great.
I think that's it. There's a bunch of other general stuff going on, conversations in the forum, people working on various things and issue queues and stuff, but nothing specifically notable about our sites. Oh, there's a bunch of translations happening on the translation site. Turkish is now like the language that has the highest translation level, which is really exciting. So I think I want to say a special thank you to all the people that have been working on translating backdrop strings too. Okay, let's turn it over to you, Nate, to talk about backdrop core.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so 1.18.3 is the latest version of backdrop that has a release that just came out yesterday. It was a security update that we coordinated with the Drupal team, and yeah, get your sites updated. It's an XSS attack, which is the most common type of web attack, not particularly dangerous, but this one kind of had some. It's pretty wide for an XSS attack. So I recommend you get your sites updated. Let's see, there was also one other bug fix that went out in that 1.18.3 that had to do with running an update from Drupal 7. So really minor other change. So 1.18.3 is mostly just that security fix, since we had a bug fix that had a whole slew of releases just a couple of weeks ago. 1.18.4, therefore, is our next bug fix release. Bug fix releases, we try to incorporate as many fixes as we can, and then we release them just sort of as is warranted once we accumulate enough fixes. The first time that I've got promoted here is a 1.18.4 issue that we'd like to move forward is PHP 8 support. The issue is 4772. And Joseph did a bunch of work on this quite a while ago, and it's been sitting in needs review for a couple of months, several months. I also saw that recently Drupal 7, I think, is also moving really close towards towards PHP 8 support. So another opportunity that we have here, besides reviewing the work that is already done, is comparing it with the work that has been happening over in Drupal and seeing if there's any things that we missed in our implementation. Joseph, I saw you unmuted. Do you want to add some things?
Yeah, there was someone reported a while back problem. I think it was IndigoZilla, although I don't remember. And I haven't been able to fix that yet. So actually, I think that should be needs work, not needs review.
Okay, thanks for the heads up there. Okay, yeah, it's currently, sorry, I saw the yellow and I thought that meant needs review, but it actually is needs testing, and the pull request currently needs work is the status in GitHub. I just misread that.
Okay.
But thank you, Joseph. Let's see. There's this issue that has to do with internationalization, that if you have the same menu item in different translations, it can cause an issue about which one is currently active in the breadcrumb and in the menu navigation. The issue number is 4798. There's a pull request that fixes this. It needs some automated tests. Jan, if there's not an update, I'm going to take this out of the agenda. This has been open for quite a while. Let's see. And we have some new issues that were brought up by Joseph and Robert here that we'd like to talk about today. Joseph, you filed a new pull request around an issue. The issue number is 5028, optimize field sync status. Can you give us a rundown of what that issue does and what you're hoping to do in that issue?
Yeah, so that function is it gets run anytime you clear caches. It's clear caches, run cron, or enable or disable a module. And basically what it does is it checks if there is a module that provides the field type and if there's a module that provides the field storage type. And in there, what it was doing is it was running a for each loop through, it was got your list of modules and then ran a for each loop per module. And then in there got a list of your fields. And so what I did is I just moved that out of the for each loop, because anytime it looks up the list of fields, it does a directory scan on your config directory. And if you have a slow file system, then that can cause massive problems. So if you're running in like a virtualized environment, or if you have a remote file system or anything like that, it'll cause massive problems to do that many directory lookups.
So, do you have any idea about an estimate about in your testing, like let's say in one of those hypothetical slow environments, say like I don't know, a Docker environment on Mac. That's one of the
So-
most notorious situations. Do you have any idea what kind of difference it is for doing something like a cache clear all?
I haven't really tested it for cache clear all. I did do, so I was actually working on this because our server is using, it's using Gluster as the file backend for the files directory of our sites. And without the patch doing a site install took about 1.5 minutes, and with the patch doing a site install takes about 20 seconds.
Wow, that's a huge difference. Wow. That's pretty cool.
So yeah.
Wow, this is cool. And Indigo Zella has already reviewed it and said that she also sees that cron runs are substantially faster doing this. Wow, well, this is very cool. Yeah, well worth prioritizing as a performance enhancement. Wow, that's really great. Nice find, Joseph.
Thanks. Yeah, if you're like bare metal on a system with an SSD, you probably would have never noticed it. But if any kind of virtualizer network in there, then it slows down a lot.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the way that we store config files. It sounds like that if the config files were stored in the database, would this still be a problem in the same way?
I don't think so. I think it's just because it's when you do an actual trace of it, it shows that the glob function is what's taking the time, because it has to do a file system search.
Well, cool. Very neat. Yeah, I'd love to take a look at that. The issue number is 5028, currently needs review. Let's see, let's move on to next issue. Robert pulled this one up for discussion today. It's 5018 is the issue number that node previews use the wrong layout. And I think we did a little bit of discussion before the meeting how this pull request has been tested. It's a pretty simple fix. But I think we wanted to kind of open a discussion about a long-term strategy for solving this problem. The fix that Robert or Bug Folder has put forward is basically correcting the approach that we have right now in layout module. That layout module does a little workaround to accommodate node previews. However, it's an unfortunate hard-coded integration point between layout module and node module that layout module makes an exception when loading node previews. And this pull request fixes that kind of by leaving the current implementation in place and just correcting it. But there's a bigger discussion here about how can we fix this with decoupling that integration and making it so that we don't have this weird exception handling in layout modules specifically for node previews. So Robert, I think you've got a better handle on this than I do. Can you describe kind of what ideas you might have for solving that issue? You have to unmute though. Yeah.
So So in the kind of layout module flow, there's a step where the layout module gets a path and then calls some routines to find the layouts that match that path, and then does some processing to set the contexts for those layouts so it can check the access and throw away the ones that don't pass the access check, and what's left is the layout that it uses. And so to accommodate the node preview, there's two things that need to happen. Is first, it needs to find the layout that matches, for example, node/%, even though the path is a different path. So it needs to find alter the way layout matches the path. And then it also needs to modify the context setting, because for previews, the parameter that shows up in the context isn't a node ID, it's the ID of the temporary node stored in TempStore. So it has to interpret context parameters in a different way. So those two things need to happen to accommodate this. And the idea is not original with me. Doc Wilmot had suggested that we put a hook into one of the layout module routines that essentially says after layout has after layout module has chosen the layouts, we let other modules have a crack at picking different ones. And but what I suggested as a kind of a modification to that is to put two hooks in, separate hooks. One, because these processes take place at different steps of the code, one hook to choose a different layout, and then another hook to set the context separately. And the reason for doing two hooks is that the code that would be in those two hooks would then be very, very small. If it's all in one hook, then some of the layout code still needs to be duplicated to both pick the path and do the context setting to fix context settings that had already happened. So those are the two proposals that were out there. There'd been some pushback noting that if we put a hook in for layout, that opens the door to someone implementing that hook in a very inefficient way, and therefore slowing down the whole site. And I had made the argument, I guess towards the end of that comment stream, that possibility already exists because the layout wildcard module does pretty much that. It basically replaces the entire call chain of layout module with its own call chain that duplicates a whole bunch of that code. And that's how it can inject what it wants to do. So I'd come to the argument that we can warn people not to implement that hook inefficiently, but we really can't prevent them if they're dead set on doing it. And
yeah, like layout wildcard was apparently making a fairly aggressive move there. I think that there's a really early, because determining what menu route to execute is like almost the very first thing that Backdrop does after it initializes the database. It says who's responsible for the current route. What's the menu entry? And layout module, we built a really early system into Backdrop that before rendering the page, there's an opportunity for one module to say, hey, I want to be responsible for the rendering of this request. And layout module takes that role and says, I'm responsible for rendering HTML pages. And I'm guessing layout wildcard module probably says, now I'm responsible for rendering these pages, and then replaces the process.
Yeah, and it basically duplicates like four functions that levels in the call stack just so it can get to the final level where it actually wants to make a change.
Yeah, so I think yeah, I think some additional hooks sound pretty valid. Was I thinking about this? And then we would be able to oh, I remember what it was that so layout module, oh no, node module would then implement the hook, right? And say, hey, for the preview path, I need, or the hooks plural, I need to make some modifications when looking at a preview path. And
Yeah.
I think the main consideration we should have with making that change and in core is we should just make sure that node module implementing that hook, or any module implementing that hook, but node module will do it out of the box, doesn't really have any noticeable impact, which it shouldn't, because it should say, an if statement right at the top of it. Does this path match? No, return. And
Exactly.
that sort of thing happens in Backdrop hundreds of times every request, that a hook is called and then nothing happens, and then it just returns back. So yeah, I think just confirming that, and then yeah, it sounds like a pretty good approach.
Okay.
But yeah, I may have even been the person that was like worried about the performance impact, but yeah, I mean, sometimes at the time that something was designed, like several years ago when layout module was written, it didn't take into account all of the needs. We didn't have this preview system at the time, although we did always know that multiple layouts was at the same path was always going to be a desirable feature. Hopefully that'll make layout wildcard, like it'll be able to come out with like a 2.0 version or something like that is a little bit simplified in its approach.
Oh, it'll be way simpler. So that's also a nice byproduct.
Wait, that also means then that if you're using layout wildcard where the hooks don't, like, because it replaces the whole discovery mechanism up front, that means that node previews still won't use the right layout if you're using layout wildcard, right? Until they update to incorporate the fix that we're using, right?
So the current version of layout wildcard, the latest release, incorporates this small fix that is in the PR. And that's already in the release version of layout wildcard.
Oh, good. Well, in a way, then that's great, because it's like collecting usage. It's actively testing the patch in production environments, which is great.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Do you have anything else, Robert, to add to that issue?
No, that's great, and I will work on the implementation.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Robert, both for bringing up that issue and of course for all of the work on it. All right, 119. 119 is the next minor version of Backdrop. It'll be coming up May 15th, 2021. Like Tim mentioned at the beginning of the call, that means that feature freeze is right around the corner. Like always, we at this point in the release cycle need to decide when feature freeze will actually be. We have a historical precedent of when feature freeze falls on a weekend or on a holiday, that the actual feature freeze is at the end of said holiday. So this being a primarily hobbyist driven project, weekends and holidays are when Backdrop tends to make a lot of progress. So it turns out that May 1st lands on a Saturday this year, which means that feature freeze won't actually be on Saturday. It'll be at the end of Sunday, April 2nd. So Jen, does that sound correct to you, like as far as my calculation of timing and everything?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. May 3rd is not a holiday, so it will actually be May 2nd. Sometimes it gets pushed to like a whole 3 or so days, which can be nice or not nice. Let's see. So feature freeze actually is May 2nd. I'm going to update that in the agenda for clarity. And we've got a number of issues that are in flight right now. One of them, the first one that we would like to get fixed, that would be a big usability improvement that we've been working through for a while now, is adding exposed filter to the media library dialog. The issue number is 3293. There is a pull request that kind of gets this working, but has some complications because the underlying issue is that the way that the page renders, there's a the views exposed form for the file name filter is inside of another form for selecting the active image, and those nested form tags cause chaos with Drupal's Ajax system. So the situation is a little bit complex. Solutions might include reworking the DOM output so that the form tags are not nested inside of each other. But it will require some effort. So issue 3293 needs some help, is the current status. Next up is advanced caching, adding cache tags and a dynamic cache max age header, issue 4127. Joseph is the advocate for this one. I don't think there has been any changes, but Joseph, do you want to give us an update on anything happening around this issue?
There has not been any updates. I think the current status is that I need to write testing documentation so that people actually know how to test it.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Because it's not at all obvious how to use it.
Yeah, especially, yeah, agree.
Yeah.
That would be a big help.
Configuring cache bins has always been weird, and this just makes it weirder.
Well, it doesn't make it sound too appealing, but all right. Thanks, Joseph. That sounds great. Jen, you are the advocate for this next issue. Add a field has value visibility condition to layouts, issue 4728. Do you
Have an update.
Oh, great.
I rebased the issue, pushed it up again with all the recent core changes. I'm looking at Doc Wilmot's Kindred module that does the same thing right now and hope to have more updated pull requests shortly.
Awesome. Speaking of Doc Wilmot, he's the advocate for the next issue. Add support for relationships to layout contexts, issue 2134. Herb Duell took a look at this pull request recently and also reviewed it and added a couple comments. Yeah, Herb Duell basically is saying like it looks pretty good. And my comment on there was that I've already reviewed it and only had a couple of minor things about renaming things, which Doc Wilmot has now done. So I'm hoping that next time we look at this, it might be ready to go. So I guess actual status on that one is needs review, but really close. Okay, and lastly, we have an issue to merge together the update pages. Right now we have separate update pages for modules, themes, and layouts. And put all of the updates for all things in the system all into one page. Issue number is 2714. Gregory or Klonos is the advocate for this issue. Last I'd seen, the merging of all of the pages has gone really well, but there is a dashboard block related to updates that Gregory was also trying to revamp at the same time. And that's the sticking point. And to complete this issue for this next release, he may just remove the dashboard block changes, just do the changes to the menu system instead, combining them all into one page. And then that would make it so that this would be ready to go as well. So that's it for the issues that are still in flight. There have been a couple of issues that have been merged in already for 119. And from the looks of things, you know, a couple of these are in good shape, others a little bit further out. So we'll see which ones we can get wrapped up here in the next, what is it? 11 days. Yeah, okay. That's it. Do you guys have any other core issues that are features that you guys would like to talk about before we move on to initiatives? Okay. Well, initiatives are long-running features or objectives that might span multiple releases. Jen kind of gave us an update already on the state of the documentation initiative with the doc site. That's the primary change there, is that BW Panda has been doing some work consolidating all of our documentation. Looks like there's an update actually in the agenda here. That BW Panda has declared this done for the time being, that the issue 747 in the backdropcms.org issue queue has been completed. He closed the issue, and that's kind of as far as he was interested in taking this this project. So I guess this might be the last time that we talk about documentation as an initiative for the time being, until we get a new initiative lead or someone that is interested in picking it back up again. Does that sound right, Tim? I see you nodding.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify that, because I think there is a lot of interest in doing more work on documentation, but for the scope and what this particular one is it's done. But we'd love for somebody else to step forward and start phase 2.
Yep.
So if anybody has the bandwidth to do that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Tim, you're actually the next thing to talk. Next topic to speak on is telemetry. Do you have any updates on the telemetry initiative?
No, but I think with I really wanted to get something into this next release. Right now, I don't see myself being able to. So what in my view, my role has been for the last 2 or 3 months, my goal has been to go through the work, Nate, that you've done, sort of review it, figure out exactly what we need to do to get something into the next release, but then rely on you or someone else to help implement that. And I haven't gotten to that. I don't know if I will in the next 10 days, or what do we have to? Yeah, we've only got about 10 days. So I don't know if anybody else has time to help with that. I mean, I think the stage is just to figure out what needs to there. I think I think we need to make a couple of decisions, and then there is some code work, right, that has to happen. Do you remember anything?
Yeah, I think we could put in, well, the simplest way to proceed, like, and actually get it done next week is the telemetry module that is written for core is pretty much ready as far as like reporting some really basic information, PHP version, MySQL version, and web server, that we could merge in the telemetry module as is and not even turn it on.
Right.
And if that were the case, then telemetry module would be in core. It wouldn't actually be turned on, and we wouldn't need to do the peripheral work of like revamping the installer, for example, to request permission to turn on the telemetry module, or possibly doing some other kind of data collection notice, to users. So that would make it so that it was just there, and then we could actually be collecting information from live production sites, but it would be very much an opt-in, very low publicity feature. So it wouldn't actually be very useful for data collection, but at least it would be there and part of core.
And I suppose it would make it a little easier to test, maybe. I don't even know if that matters. I feel like we talked about this last time and came up with a reason why we didn't want to do this. Put it in, but have it disabled. Can you think of a reason why this is a bad idea? Why we might not have done this last time?
I think maybe, well, my thought is that it's just not very useful.
Sure.
You know, like for the purpose that we have for the module, that its purpose is to collect information. But I can't think of
Okay.
any other problems.
So we have issues obviously around the code that's going to go into backdrop.org to store the data. That's different from the code that's going to go into core. What hasn't, I'm trying to remember myself, and what isn't done that has to go into core, right, is what you just talked about. It's the stuff about how to turn it on and how to manage it. And I don't know if there's some policy decisions that need to be made there, or if it's more just about implementing it. But you're saying we could get around that by just not enabling it.
Right.
So if we, yeah.
I have a question. Did we already implement the restriction that prevents people from recording data unless it's specifically whitelisted?
Allow
Actually,
listed.
Allow listed?
Yes.
'Cause I think that was a blocker, but I don't remember if we did it already or not.
No, it hasn't been done, but that is on the backdropcms.org side, not
Okay.
on the contrib module side.
Okay,
Because a
great.
module can implement the hook, yeah, and that will start sending data to backdropcms.org. But because it's an anonymous API, like any site is allowed to send this information, there's really nothing we can do from stopping data from being sent
Right.
to the server. So we need to do the filtering on the server side and just discard the information that isn't relevant or isn't allowed to be stored.
Okay, so do we have anything on backdropcms.org right now doing anything at all? Or was that just part of the example? Okay,
Yeah, we don't have it. There's a pull request that would put it into backdropcms.org, but it's
Okay.
not there yet.
okay, great, thanks.
okay. So it sounds to me like, to quickly summarize, that we could, the best route to getting something into this next release would be to decide to verify that the current code, to do that with it being disabled. If we did do that, then individuals could enable it, right? If we would be able to get stuff working on backdrop.org at any time and actually see data coming in, even though that data would be pretty not very valuable until we sort out the whole how to enable it process.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of an interesting question about could we do that mid-release or not? I don't really know. I kind of feel like probably not.
Sure.
Because it's not really a bug fix. You can't even really say that it's a usability improvement.
Sure.
So I don't think that that really meets our qualifiers. But I don't know, maybe somebody will come up with a different way to spin it that would make that make sense.
Well, that's certainly not where I was going. I mean, I would be happy if we were able to. I think if we knew that the code was in backdrop.org and that people had the option of turning it on, right? That would give us some incentive to work on the backdrop.org part, in the sense that, like, we'd at least be able to see data coming in once we implemented it, even if it's only for 10 sites, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's very true.
we wouldn't have to wait until the next release in order to see anything happen. We could at least see, like, wow, our work is working, even though it'll take until the next release before it's actually effective.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would argue that there is some value in getting it in, and getting that in so that we could turn it on if nobody has any reasons not to do that. If that helps us, even if it only subtly helps us, motivate us to get the backdrop.org part.
Yep. Great thoughts. I agree.
Okay. So if anybody has time to help with this, please do. I'd be happy to talk to anybody, or set up a meeting between now and the feature freeze, if that's helpful. But on my own, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do much in the next 10 days.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'll see what I can do personally, since I've had my hands on a lot of that code. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I can commit to
Right.
having major enhancements, but we'll see. I'll try.
I'm not asking because I know there's other things that really need your attention too, Nate. So I don't know. Yeah, you have to look at all the things that are sort of dependent on you right now. It'd be great if we could get somebody else with the skills to help with this involved. Okay, I'll shut up.
Okay.
Well, how about this? I'll make comments on the next one because the next thing on the agenda is Luke's thing. And Luke was just, I'll just mention that Luke was on the last call and asked, what are people expecting from me, or where is my initiative at? And we talked briefly about it. Where it currently stands is he would like to get some kind of final report. And we've talked about that before. I asked him if he was sure that that was necessary, and he still thinks it's a good idea. He was looking for some sort of a deadline, and at least the idea of using the next Backdrop Live as a deadline came up. I don't know. I think he'd like to do it sooner than that, but I would say our target right now is to just get a final report before the next Backdrop Live. But, and that is another initiative which, like the documentation one, which he's doing a final report on what he originally set out to do. But if anybody is looking at that and interested in taking it further, please step up and let us know, because there's definitely more work to do on that. It's not that we've solved that problem. We've just made some steps forward is all. And now I'll be quiet.
Thanks, Tim. No, I appreciate that. I'd actually removed that from the agenda because I didn't think there was going to be any other noise there. But great. All right. We're closing in on the top of the hour where the meeting has to end. But do we have any other general questions or discussion that you guys would like to talk about? Okay. Well, maybe we'll call it a meeting then. Thank you all for being present, and thank you out there to our online audience that watches these weekly videos. We really appreciate all of the work that we're doing, that you are doing for Backdrop. We have 10 days about before the code freeze, so let's make them count. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys on the internet.